Are we on? Are you sure? Welcome to another episode. I'm really excited to be having this conversation with you today. My wife and I were actually talking about the title of this episode, and I had originally called it The Formula for Success. And she was like, nope, Uche, first of all, absolute statement. There isn't one formula for success. And then she asked a very important question. She actually asked, what is success? Because success to Uche is different from success to Vona, different from success to you. And so she reminded me of, I reminded myself from the conversation about the definition of success that was given by L. Nightingale. And the definition that he gave, I think, is mind-blowing. Very simple, but life-transforming. And he goes, success is the progressive realization of a worthy ideal. And he goes on to explain that a worthy ideal means different things to different people. And so he gave the example of a mom or a parent whose success for them is raising kids that are whole, healthy, and set up for life. And that's really all for them what success is. For another person, yes, they want to raise kids that are whole and healthy, but that might not be their priority. Their success could be starting and scaling a business, or somebody, going all the way to the top of a large corporate organization. The point being that let's start there. What is success for you? And understand that journey to success is going to be progressive. It's a realization that came to me a while ago. And I'm glad it came because I was no longer enjoying my life. I was very much living for a destination, somewhere I was trying to go to, until I heard somebody say, enjoy the journey on the way to where you are going. So enjoy the process. Enjoy where you are now. Make a decision to do something that you enjoy on a daily basis. So let's get to the title that my wife and I finally agreed on for this episode. And we said, it's a formula for a better you. And I was happy with that because a better you is required if you are going to be successful. Or should I say, if you are going to be more successful than you currently are. And it is the quote I love to share by Marsha Goldsmith that says, what got you here won't get you there. And so to explain this formula, let me take you into a story. One day I was working in a bank, I won't call the name, and I had those relationships at work that you feel this person was put here to make your life difficult. That's one of those relationships. And so one day we were there and the lady completely lost it with me. She started to raise her voice. She said, Uche, you are arrogant. You're full of yourself. You think you are better than everybody else. And she was really ripping into me. I mean, here I am, starting my career not long before, a few years before. And I realized, first and foremost, you're on a visa and you're a tall black man. So you cannot react or get angry or lose it here. You're going to have to control yourself. And so I controlled myself and then I went home. By this time, you can imagine, I'm fuming. I'm raging mad. And I go home, open the door, and the minute I see my wife, what do? I launch into it. Can you imagine what she said? She said, I'm arrogant. I think I'm better than everybody else. I am full of myself. And I went on shouting, of course. Everything I wanted to say to her, but couldn't. And then all I'm expecting, the more I speak, is for my wife to lean in, give me a beautiful, nice, big hug and say, don't worry about them. They're just jealous of you. That's not what happened. My wife steps back, takes a breath, and says, thank God someone told you. Oh my God. That was painful. That was like piercing my heart. And so I get upset with my wife now because she's now the enemy. And I call my best friend and I say to him, can you imagine what these women are saying? And he goes, I wouldn't put it that way, but there's some truth to what they're saying. And that was difficult to hear. Now, this is the first part of a formula for a better you, and as we say, then you being more successful. Self-awareness. My friend also spoke to me about the fact that I wasn't always this way. And so we'll talk about the root cause analysis later on. But that's the first thing, self-awareness. And so there's the beautiful quote from the Bible that I love, and it says, and you shall know the truth, and the truth will set you free. Amazing. Wonderful statement. But implied in that statement, if the truth is going to help you get better and set you free, is you accept the truth. And that's the second part of the formula. That you have self-awareness and plus self-acceptance. And the final part is self-improvement. Now, self-awareness plus self-acceptance plus self-improvement will definitely lead to a better you and will definitely lead to a more successful you. So, let's go back to my story. It wasn't what I wanted to hear. It was extremely difficult to hear it, but I had a choice. Am I going to accept it or am I going to be in denial? I want you to just think for a second about yourself. Are there things that you are refusing to accept? Are there things that you're refusing to own up to? Question is, why? I'll delve a little bit more into that later. But the question I have for you and we want to answer first is, what should you get self-aware about? Right? You know? What should you get self-aware about? And the simple answer to that is your blind spots. If you drive or you've been in a car, one of the major causes of accidents is actually people's blind spots. You can't see everything. And your blind spots that you don't see and then you turn in. I remember once I was driving, I had looked in my side mirror multiple times. I decided to swerve right. And just as I was about to do that, a car just went past me. If I decided seconds earlier, I would have had a bad accident. Why? My blind spot. And there's a great tool to think about when it comes to your blind spot. It's called the Johari's window. And the way it's a 4-quadrant model. And it has what is known to yourself and what is not known to yourself. And then the other side axis is what is known to people and what is not known to people. So if something is known to you and is known to people, then you call it the open area. It's obvious for everyone to see. Even in that, some people don't accept themselves, right? And then you have what is known to people, what is known to you, but is not known to others. You call that the hidden area. And the hidden area, quite frankly, some things should stay hidden while you work on them, okay? They should stay hidden. And then you have the known to others and not known to you. That is the blind spot. And your role and what you need to do is to expand the open area so you know more about your blind spot. Why? Because just as the blind spots when you are driving can cause a ghastly accident, your blind spot can cause a ghastly accident in your life. Yes, people have lost jobs, failed businesses, lost opportunities because of blind spots they have and are not aware of. So, one example of self-awareness, something that you might want to think about is I coach many leaders, and I've coached leaders who say they want something and are willing to put the work in, and when they are closer to achieving the goal that they wanted to achieve or they set out to achieve, guess what? They self-sabotage. They do something that spoils the opportunity, and they are not aware that they are self-sabotaging. They're not aware that they are the ones in their own way. And when they realize self-awareness, oh my God, this is what I'm doing, I'm self-sabotaging, then they can do something about it. So let us go deeper into the next part of self-awareness. How do you get self-aware? In my case, it was unsolicited. And she literally just, came out punching, literally uppercuts and flooring me to the ground, emotionally and mentally speaking. And so the best way to get self-awareness is to ask people. That's the honest truth. Go to your friends, go to family, the ones who love you, the ones who truly want you to succeed, and ask them about blind spots that perhaps you need to work on to help you keep on moving forward. You can work with a coach. If you're in an organization, even without being in an organization, you can do things like a 360 feedback. But this bottom line is you need to ask questions. I have a very simple exercise when somebody says they want to transition to a more senior role, or somebody is trying to raise funding for a business and they've not been successful. The question is why? And only by asking for some truthful feedback can you begin to make the adjustments that you need to make. So self-awareness, ask for it. And then we go to the big one, self-acceptance. Here I am being described as arrogant, being described as, thinking I'm better than everybody else, thinking too much of myself. And so I had to sit down and say, where did this come from? But before even doing some analysis, I had to ask myself the question, are you arrogant? And are you going to accept that you are? A lot of times we don't move forward because we are deceiving ourselves. Self-acceptance is the truth that you don't accept will not set you free. That's an important thing that you need to realize, okay? And so what are some of the lies that we use to deceive ourselves and keep ourselves in the same spot? One of them is just the way I am. Nonsense. I love a quote by some researchers, Guffey and Jones, and they wrote an article called Why Should Anyone Be Led by You? Great article to read. But they make a statement in that article, that book, which is be yourself more with skill. That's the goal. That yes, you are a particular way, but everybody, you, me, we have to consistently improve. I was speaking to a leader recently and she said, what sets me apart is I'm not afraid to fail and I'm not afraid to evolve. So I'm inviting you to evolve, okay? So accept the reality. So some people say, well, what if I disagree? What if I disagree with what someone said about me? I once heard a professor in a business school say this. He said, if one person tells you you're a donkey, yeah, maybe you can ignore them. If another person tells you you are a donkey, maybe you should think about this a little bit more. If a third person tells you you are a donkey, buy a saddle. So there's what we think about ourselves and there's the reality of how people perceive us. And as we know, perception is reality. Okay? So, accept yourself. That's the first lie, is just the way I am. The other one is people are jealous of you. Yeah, I could have thought that the colleague that spoke to me was jealous of me. Yes, of course, and maybe she was. But after speaking to someone that loves me and wants me to be my best and wants me to succeed and excel, my wife, my friend, and they say, well, I won't say it as bad as that, but there's some truth to that with the way you behave these days or in the last couple of years, then, I'm able to validate. So that idea of people are jealous of me is a way of wanting to make yourself feel better. And you can probably bench that. Pride is a reason we don't accept certain things. Denial. Many people are in self-denial. And then sometimes we also just blame others. It's never you. Well, maybe you have a role to play, but really it's because of the way they did it. If this person would be different, I wouldn't behave this way. If this situation was different, I wouldn't behave this way. If the series of events happened differently, I wouldn't have had to behave that way. And it just goes on and on and on. Okay, so stop blaming others. Take responsibility for the feedback that you are getting and do something about it. Okay? Now, I want to give you a good example of self-acceptance. I was coaching this guy, leader, in Saudi Arabia, to be exact. And when we started the conversation, he said to me, Uche, I'm totally fed up of this situation. And so he was doing a particular course that was quite time consuming. It would take years and expensive. And so he thought to himself, well, I'm doing it for the benefit of myself and my organization, and so they should actually sponsor me to do this course. The organization had simply said, no, we're not going to sponsor you to do this course. If you want to do it, you can do it with your own money, on your own time. We're not giving you time off. You can do it in the evenings, the weekends, you control your life. And he went with that information and started the course anyway. Okay, no problem. Thinking that once he started, the organization will have a change of heart. Well, they did not. Bear in mind, this is an organization that had paid for his MSc internationally. So it wasn't like they weren't willing to invest in him. And so I meet him at a point in time where the organization has put him on a professional course that was 1 week long, and the amount of money they paid the organization for him to do the course was equivalent to 1 year of the course he was doing by himself. And so he was just even more upset. When we had the conversation, I said to him, what are you refusing to accept in this situation? And that's a question you should ask yourself. And he looked at me a bit blank. What do you mean, what am I refusing to accept? He thought about it. Sometimes we are so stuck in our thinking and our thoughts that we don't see any way else. And so I had to help him. And I said to him, the organization owes you nothing as far as sponsoring your course or giving you time off is concerned. They didn't promise you it. They sponsored you to do an MSc before, and they told you point blank, we are not going to do this for you. So they owe you nothing. You made your own decision. Why are you taking out your frustration and the pressure of the course on them? He looked at me. You could tell that he was getting upset. And then he paused and goes, okay. He let it sink in. I did not know the impact of that simple statement until it was spoken in our following coaching session 3 or 4 weeks later. He was a different person. He was smiling. He was excited. And I was like, what happened? What changed? He said, following that conversation, the first thing that I did was I took a break. I took 2 weeks off, shut down from work. It was holiday that I had been accruing, and I just went and spent some time with my family, but also myself. And I kept on pondering on your statement. And I realized I've been letting that mindset steal my joy, steal my performance, steal my proactivity. And I was getting quite fed up in the organization. He was actually planning maybe to leave the organization. When he came back, he said it was like a ray of sunshine. He spent that 2 weeks to reevaluate where he was on his professional, on the course, the long-term course he was doing. He set a plan with his supervisors and decided, I'm going to get this thing done in the next 6 months. I'm almost there. He went back to his organization and began to connect with people in other divisions that he needs to get experience with and from for his professional vision to be manifested. I mean, just accepting that the organization owed him nothing changed everything for him. Again, I ask you, what are you not accepting? And the final part of the formula to be a better you and a more successful you is simple: self-improvement. I run my life, and I encourage you to do the same, with the simple Kaizen principle. The principle is continuous, consistent improvement. As I understand the story, when the various countries in Asia wanted to start, making cars, and they wanted to dominate the auto industry, I think the biggest car manufacturers at the time were all in America. And so they obviously bought American cars and dismantled them and began to figure out, okay, how does this work? Number one. And number two, what are we going to do to improve? You make the first model, and then you improve slightly, second model, third model, to the X model. That's how life works. But the important thing is consistency. You need to be consistent. One step at a time, improving. I'll give you an interesting, story. Years after that episode of somebody telling me that I'm arrogant and I think I'm better than everybody else, I overheard somebody having a conversation, and my name comes up. And they say, and she said, one of the things I like about Uche is that, he can be quite humble. I was like, okay, there's been a change. It didn't happen the next day. It happened over years, but I was intentional about the change that I wanted to see in my life. And so, if you're going to improve, if you're going to really make a difference for yourself, you need to get at the root of the problem. The root. We're not here, when I do coaching, we're not here about behavioral modification. No. We are here about addressing the root of problems so that you can address the root and see real change in your life. When you address the root, then you're able to see real change. Let me give you two quick examples as we bring this episode to a close. The first one is another leader I coached. And the topic she wanted to discuss was, I need to stop getting so upset when people disagree with me or give me feedback that is ambiguous, or they criticize my work. And it was really about criticism. When they criticize my work, she says she gets really upset. And it manifests in different ways. One is, the way she behaves. The other is she would say things like, I would just intentionally not do a particular task at the time it was meant to be done, or as well as I know as I know it can be done. Why? Because for me, they've criticized me. And so I said, well, so what do you want to change? She said, I want to change that. I want to stop letting people's criticisms of my work affect me so much. So I said, okay, no problem. So how are you going to change that? And so she goes, I don't know. And I applied what I call it's called the 5 whys, which is you ask why something is happening, you get the answer, and you ask, okay, so why is that happening? You get the answer, and you keep on asking why. You can do it 5 times or up to 10, or as many times as you want to get to the root. And the more I kept on asking why, to her frustration, by the 6th or 7th why, it was a light bulb. She said, I get it now. I said, what do you mean? And she goes, when they criticize me, it is not a criticism of my work. I think they are doubting my intelligence, number one. And number two, I have a PhD, so I know a lot, and I'm probably more an expert in this than most of the people I'm working with. So they're criticizing my work. So they're doubting my ability. Number two, they are not taking into account the level of expertise that I have. Number three, they're not trusting me, and I feel like there's some other, thing in the background that I'm not aware of. And I said to her, anybody who feels that way, feels like they doubt your ability, feels like they don't take you as credible, and that maybe you are lying, you're going to have a negative reaction. Any human being will have a negative reaction to that. And so she got to the root, and she began to disassociate the work from her as a person, knowing that I've done my best, but it can become better if I work with somebody else. And I'll give you a final story. When I burnt out in 2017, a couple of years later, I was heading for the same wall, another crash. If I hadn't done counseling, therapy, and realized that what was driving me was a fear of failure, I was going to get and hit the wall again. So you need to address the root. And the 5 whys is a potentially a very good way of getting to the root of an issue. So there you have it. I hope this is very helpful. Ask yourself, do I want to be a better person? Of course you do. Because a better you, more you with skill, equals a more successful you. How are you going to get there? Apply the formula. Get some self-awareness. Increase your self-awareness, I should say. Accept. Once it's been validated by more than one person, accept it and start improving. Until next time, please, if this has been helpful to you, pay it forward. Share it with somebody who will find it useful. Like it, comment, and stay blessed. I'll see you at the next episode.